What is up, everybody? Random Man here, and holy crap, room change. Yes, I apologize for not having made a video in quite a while, but this was kind of the reason why I wasn't doing so, and because I am starting my first year of college. Yes, I'm officially a college boy, and I have since moved into a new room into my house, and this is now going to be my permanent shooting location for all of my reviews. As you can see, it's really nothing much. I expect to have these walls painted, have a bunch of movie posters everywhere, but that's for later. But this is not why you clicked on this video. You clicked on this video to find out my thoughts on Dope, which stars Shameik Moore, Tony Revolori, Kiersey Clemons, Zoe Kravitz, and A$AP Rocky, and is directed by Rick Famuyiwa. Now the plot follows Malcolm, a geeky high school senior who is trying to survive life in the tough neighborhood of Inglewood, California. But when a chance invitation to an underground party leads him and his friends, played by Tony Revolori and Kiersey Clemons, to new opportunities, their lives soon change as they find drugs in Malcolm's backpack the very next day. Now, this movie originally came out back in June, and I was at first intrigued to see it, but before I even got the opportunity to, it was pulled from theaters. Until now, as during this Labor Day weekend, participating AMC theaters are offering a buy one get one free deal for Dope. Now that's pretty cool, and it gave me the chance to see this movie that lots of people were talking about this past summer. And at first expectations going into this film, it looked like a very fun, offbeat, kind of different movie, but also had a lot of potential to be very just entertaining in general. And the cast looked really good, and the story was very, very intriguing. But how was it? Let's run down the whole thing. Right off the bat, I'll say that the cast here is superb. Shameik Moore, who is a newcomer to Hollywood to my knowledge, is just super charismatic in this film. He pulls off the geeky nature of how Malcolm is perceived, and also has a little bit of cool stuff about him as he is obsessed with the rest of his friends with 90s hip-hop and just the culture and how they dress and all that jazz. And it's just hilarious to see how he interacts with everyone else, and I think he is a talent to watch for. Same thing with the other leads here. Tony Revolori from last year's The Grand Budapest Hotel is hilarious as one of Malcolm's friends, and we have Kiersey Clemons as the raunchy lesbian of the group. Now, well, everyone is raunchy to an extent, but everyone here is just having super likable chemistry, and they bounce off of each other really well. There's also rapper A$AP Rocky, who has a small role in what sets off the trigger for the drugs being in Malcolm's backpack, and he does a very nice job. And we also have Zoe Kravitz as a girl that Malcolm likes. All in all, there are way more people in this cast to even mention, but everyone here does just a fantastic job. They really sold me in the realism and how they could happen to be characters I could meet or people I could meet in real life. The plot here definitely sets up a pretty wild adventure throughout LA, and from how the movie is shot and how it tells the story, it's very distinct and just very vibrant, very lively. I really liked how this movie was set up, the production design, everything like that made me sell. Again, like the characters, the realism of this movie, and just its weird nature. Again, going back to the plot, it's about how these three geeks get involved with some drugs that they're obviously not supposed to have. And what I commend heavily about this movie in the first half is how it sets up this very weird kind of movie, but also a very funny one. This movie had me laughing throughout during the first half, and I was really digging where it was going until the second half. That's where I draw into some issue with the film, as it feels very distinct when you go from the first half of the movie to the second half of the film, as the first half felt like this very quirky, very offbeat kind of dramedy, while the second half is just totally awkward throughout. The tone throughout the second half of the movie is just all over the place. And when the story gets told, I didn't necessarily like the direction it was going because I didn't expect these characters to do certain things that they do in the second half of the film, especially because I love the first half so much. Going off of how I thought that the second half of this movie was meh, it also went into how I felt the movie was a bit too long towards that second half. It was about 10 to 15 minutes, a little bit too long for my liking in about this hour and 45-minute running time, but it also had to do somewhat with how I didn't like what some of these characters did during the second half, as I didn't expect the characters to do so, seeing how they were set up in the beginning of this movie. Also, there was a message trying to be shoved down our throats towards the very end of the movie, and usually with movies like this, I welcome it because it's trying to tell a relevant moral, but this one seemed a bit too preachy for my liking. Although I will say that the last shot of this movie is simply brilliant and did get me thinking on that level. But everything else about this movie, other than the very messy tone and just a bit of how its length was handled, I still really enjoyed a lot of what this movie had to offer. The casting was still very nicely handled. These characters are just really likable, even if they did certain decisions toward the end of the movie that I didn't like. The dialogue that they share with one another, the look, production design, and cinematography of this movie is just simply vibrant. And even the soundtrack, I have to briefly mention that. This movie had a very, very nice soundtrack. Again, these kids are obsessed with 90s geek rap culture or anything like that, but they also have a band themselves, and they play some really catchy original tunes, if I do say so myself. So overall, I did find this to be a very enjoyable experience, and it's a different kind of movie that could be appreciated on a certain level for someone who is into experimental filmmaking, and I do really commend the film for trying that. My final thoughts on this movie are that it is a tonally inconsistent, yet refreshingly funny and trippy at times for where the movie goes in certain areas of the first half dramedy. I really enjoyed what this movie had to offer in terms of how it tried experimenting with certain levels of comedy, which again is pretty funny at that, and just how it's trying to tell the story. I really dug the cast of characters. The music was very nice. The look of this movie was very distinct, and the writing, for the most part, I really did find very, very, very good. But once the second half of the movie hit, I just thought that it felt very awkward in its tone again, in trying to be too dark, too light, and just everything in between, just making it feel like a bit underwhelming in that regard. But overall, for the experience that you would have going in and just going out of this film, I really think that it is something to really appreciate in a certain regard in what it is trying to accomplish. Out of the two high-profile Sundance movies that came out this year, between this and Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, I very much prefer Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, as it is one of my favorite movies of 2015 thus far. But Dope, I would still recommend. My final verdict for Dope is 3.5 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of Dope, subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.